but on Russian TV, they frequently show Melania nude in order to mock Donald Trump. So they show all these photos of Melania. By the way,
Melania Trump. Nude
photos of Melania Trump have been aired on Russia's most watched state TV channel during a program supposedly dedicated to celebrating Trump's election victory. This comes after Trump allegedly urged Putin not to escalate the Ukraine war in a phone call last week. But the Kremlin denies that this phone call ever took place.
All right, so you are not going to believe this, but Russian state TV decided that the best way to say congratulations to Donald Trump after the 2024 election was to throw Melania Trump's nude British GQ photos up on prime time and narrate them like they were unveiling a new national monument. And yes, it actually aired on Russia One's nightly flagship, the one they literally call 60 Minutes, with hosts Olga Skabeeva and Yevgeny Popov doing the honors.
Melania's previously made posts about how proud she is of her nudes, but did you know that after Donald Trump and Melania met, she got what was called an Einstein visa? She was treated like a genius, an exceptional achievement visa that gave her a fast track to become a United States citizen.
They smiled, they smirked, and they rolled the images as if they were part of an official tribute package, which makes about as much sense as playing Hail to the Chief on a kazoo. But that is the point. It is weird, it is calculated, and there is video, which is why multiple outlets in the West archived it the minute it happened, right after the vote count. That is not rumor. That is a broadcast, and it landed exactly where they wanted it to land, in our heads and in his ego. So, get this. The segment was not subtle. Popov literally tells viewers, here is how she looked in 2000.
Shall we dance? We're speaking to the lucky Army sergeant who danced with Melania Trump at the Commander-in-Chief Ball on inaugural night. All eyes were on the strapping soldier who cut in on the president and gave the First Lady a twirl. He's Sergeant Henry Waller.
When I walked out on stage, I was trying to contain my composure, but we were told that it's not like ceremonial composure. We can smile if you want to, and I was just overwhelmed with joy being out on the stage with all those people cheering for me.
The First Lady smiled broadly as they danced.
The edit is not artsy, it is not archival, it is taunting dressed up as congratulations, which is the Russian state TV love language. Western write-ups quickly pinned the timing. This did not air months later in some retrospectives. It ran in the immediate wake of Donald Trump's win, like a ribbon cutting with a wink. The outlets that covered it include Newsweek and the Kyiv Independent, and you can find Julia Davis's clip via Russia Media Monitor if you want to see the tone for yourself.
She then used her citizenship to bring in her family members, a policy that Donald Trump is blocking, and that Donald Trump would send people like that, I guess if their skin color was brown or black, to concentration camps in the Everglades called Alligator Alcatraz. Let's dig through this timeline, shall we? So what was Donald Trump doing in 1997, the year before he meets Melania? Well, in 1997, he's out there partying with Epstein and Ghislaine. This is from the London Sunday Mirror. This is 1997. How sweet. Trump's Brit of all, right? Just weeks after ditching his second wife, America's best-known billionaire Donald Trump has fallen under the spell of a 20-year-old English girl. This was before Melania, okay? This is 1997. Trump 50, who has failed in his bid to secure the services of Princess Diana's butler, Paul Burrell, was in search of another British trophy when he met London model Anushka DeGiorgio at a party in Manhattan. Several American millionaires already had their eyes on Anushka, but she was there with Robert Maxwell's daughter, Ghislaine, who has introduced several of her attractive friends to the property developer, and none of his would-be rivals owned a vast mansion in Florida like Donald does. Mar-a-Lago, where I have dined with him, the author writes, is enough to make any young girl go weak at the knees. After their meeting, Trump flew Madame Maxwell, they called her a Madame Maxwell, and the model south to the Sunshine State, where all three enjoyed a happy weekend together. When they returned to New York, Anushka was installed in one of Donald's many apartments there. Miss DeGeorgia likes older men. She went out once or twice with this other person. Doubtless it is the start of a long, and by Trump's standards, it already is, friendship. So that's what was happening there. So Donald Trump's out there doing that. And then Donald Trump's out there going to these parties at the Kit Kat Club to meet. This is separate than what I just said. This is separate. He's just going out there to meet, these young models.
They were not honoring a first lady. They were reminding a president. Now, because people forget timelines, a quick rewind is useful. The photos are not new, and they are not fake. The British GQ shoot happened in January 2000, long before politics swallowed everyone's free time, and GQ itself has written about that day in detail, right down to the props on Trump's old 727. This is part of Melania's professional past, as adult modeling from an adult woman, and ABC interviewed Antoine Verglas, the photographer, back in 2016 about how the shoot came together. He said Trump had no problem with it and even lent the plane. All of that is public record, which is exactly why airing it now has teeth. Moscow is not breaking news. They are pressing buttons. They pulled a known file and repackaged it as a state television event to celebrate his return.
So Donald Trump goes to the Kit Kat Club, and let's just see the story as reported by the New York Times about how Donald and Melania met at the Kit Kat Club. They were linked by someone named Paolo Zampoli, who's become an ambassador under Donald Trump, a high-ranking government official. And here's how New York Times describes what went down. When Donald met Melania, Paolo was there. And the article goes on to say how Paolo secured Miss Trump's visa to the United States and introduced her to her future husband at a 1998 party he hosted at the Kit Kat Club. Mr. Zampoli's parties have featured an alligator, tiger cubs, and models at nightclubs blowing kisses at fashion television cameras. So Donald Trump meets Melania at the Kit Kat Club, and then they develop a relationship with each other.
It is the same picture with a different frame, and the frame is the story. And, this is the pattern with him, right? Anytime the narrative slips from his grip, the reflex kicks in. It is the move we have seen since the first campaign. He gets pinned in a corner, someone introduces embarrassment into the scene, and instead of breathing through it, he tries to dominate the room by changing the subject or escalating the stakes. The cycle repeats. The Access Hollywood weekend. The crowd's size fixation. The day a comedian drops a joke with his name in it and he writes 6 posts that night. The pattern is almost soothing at this point, which is probably why Russian TV keeps poking. They know they can spark the precise reaction they want, and they do not even have to do it loudly. They can do it with a montage and a smirk.
Missy?
I think she.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Okay, so we can all agree on that. That's a given. I also think that she wants to take him out. She does not want to be the first lady anymore.
They agree with you.
She doesn't want to be the first lady. She's destroyed the Rose Garden. Who hates Christmas? Melania Trump hates Christmas. She doesn't want to decorate for Christmas. She doesn't want anything to do with him. She doesn't want to sleep in the same room with him. She can't tolerate him.
Allegedly.
And she does.
Yeah, how do you know all this?
Yeah, I don't know.
You don't know all this.
Allegedly. That's why I say allegedly.
Allegedly. And so I really think that this is her way of undercutting his bid for the presidency, because then she doesn't have to deal with him.
But it would have hurt him more if she had just said, we all know he lost the election.
Right.
You know, that would have really got it. That would have been better.
Well, this is how they're simpatico. Like Alyssa said, she needs the money because he's broke. So she wants to make the money. Now her memoir is all buzzy. Now we're all talking about it. Maybe now she's not as bad as she is.
And then let's talk about what happened. How Melania arrived in the United States from Slovenia in 1996 for modeling work, and then she obtained her green card around 2001 based on her extraordinary ability as a model, secured by Paolo Zampoli, who led the modeling agency. Now, Zampoli later transitions from a modeling agency guy into real estate deals, and then he used the models in order to build his real estate fortune. Here was Paolo Zampoli in a BBC interview. This was like about 20 years ago or more. Here's how he created a real estate company using the models as the real estate agents. Here, play this clip.
The new issue of living with Mr. Trump on the cover.
Merging modelling and high-end property is the idea of Italian entrepreneur Paolo Zampoli, a friend of the New York tycoon Donald Trump. Several of his top models have a foot in both camps.
But they're really not that different, actually, because for both professions, you need to have incredible networking skills. So that's the basis for modeling and as well as for real estate. So if you combine the two industries, you're left with the same Rolodex. You just go through your Rolodex and sell houses that way.
It's more attractive to me because it's you get to meet a lot of people, and it's more consistent than the acting business would be.
Less precarious.
Yes.
Western coverage of the broadcast made the same point in more diplomatic words. Russian propagandists have a long history of treating Trump like content they can program. They nickname him, they needle him, they test where the line is, then they push a little further. It is less news than user testing on the world's most reactive brand. The evidence around this specific night is straightforward enough to put on a whiteboard. Russia 1 airs a 60-minute segment after the 2024 result. Hosts Yevgeny Popov and Olga Skabeeva congratulate Melania's return by rolling multiple shots from her modeling career, including nude images from the 2000 GQ set. Popov identifies the cover on air. Skabeeva visibly fights a grin. Russian media monitor grabs the footage. Western outlets publish summaries and quotes with screen grabs that match the clip. This is not internet telephone. It is a captured broadcast from state TV in a moment of geopolitical theater, and the timing is not an accident. The show is prime time. The country is Moscow's. The subject is the incoming White House. That is what makes it more than gossip. That is what makes it messaging.
Right. Now you fast forward a little bit, and, Melania and Donald, they'd hang out a lot with Ghislaine and Epstein. Also, you can see here that Melania and Donald, they would hang out with. That's Karen McDougal right there, who Donald Trump eventually cheated on Melania with right after Melania gave birth to Barron. You can see right there. But then Melania got her family citizenship. Melania Trump used a legal pathway that her husband and his top advisors has repeatedly disparaged as chain migration, the right of U.S. citizens to bring their parents to the United States. Federal law since 1965 has said U.S. citizens may apply to bring minor children and parents to join them in the United States without having to wait a long time for a visa. Citizens may sponsor siblings and adult children, but they typically wait longer for visas. Okay, so Melania gets the expedited path based on an Einstein visa after meeting Donald Trump at the Kit Kat Club. Then she brings in her family, and now Donald Trump's against all of those same policies. Now, Melania is no innocent person in all of this either. Melania, after Donald Trump was caught on video bragging about sexually assaulting women and grabbing women by their genitals, and he says because if you're rich, they let you do it. She said that's locker room talk and that she was okay with it. Here, play this clip.
He described it as locker room talk. Mm-hmm. To you, I mean, you sort of alluded to that as well. Is that what it is to you, just locker room talk?
Yeah, it's kind of two teenage boys. Actually, they should behave better, right?
He was 59.
Correct. And sometimes I said, I have two boys at home. I have my young son and I have my husband. So, but I know how some men talk, and that's how I saw it, yes.
Here is the part that turns a crass TV choice into a diplomatic readout. In the weeks around this, Melania had been pre-promoting her memoir and pushing a line about nude art and honoring the human body, which is a very European model take and not controversial in that context. She even posted a video montage of classical nudes to make the point. So Russia did not just pick racy material. They picked racy material that she had recently reframed as art and that he has historically tried to ignore when it costs him face. Then they aired it on a state channel as a gift, which reads like a compliment until you sit with it for 10 seconds and realize what is being established. They pick the moment, they pick the light, they pick the interpretation. And they do it while the American political press is still drafting think pieces about the incoming administration's tone. That is dominance dressed as flattery. That is the Kremlin's favorite tuxedo. Before anyone tries the bad faith tangent, no, this is not a moral panic about a woman's modeling career. Melania's choices were legal and professional. She has defended them and does not owe anyone shame on a 25-year time delay. The story is not whether the pictures exist. The story is why an authoritarian state channel put them on screen at that exact second.
And then she was also one of the biggest spreaders of the birther conspiracies against former President Obama. She was used by Donald Trump frequently to go and attack Obama. Here, play this clip.
But what is this with the birth certificate obsession? Did he ask to see yours when you met him?
I needed to put mine anyway, because if you want to become an American citizen, you need to put the birth certificate.
Right.
I have a birth certificate from Slovenia.
Mm-hmm.
And do you want to see President Obama birth certificate or not?
I've seen it.
It's not the birth certificate.
Well, it's a certificate of live birth,
Right,
which they get. But Melania, if he insists on what he's saying, then no one in Hawaii can ever run for president because they all get the same live birth certificate.
Well, but they need to
Bette
have...
Midler is finished, for example.
They need to have, and in one way, it will be very easy if President Obama just show it. And because it's not only Donald who wants to see it. It's American people who voted for him and who didn't vote for him. They want to see that.
But it's on display in Chicago. We've seen it on the internet. We've seen it. It's not the same as yours, but it's a certificate of live birth.
Well, we feel it's different than, birth certificate.
All right. Well, I think you should give it up at this point.
Well, it's not him that it's bringing up. It's the media all the time.
The answer is not subtle. It tells you who they think sets the tone. It tells you how they plan to communicate with the most easily provoked politician in the Western Hemisphere. It tells you they do not have to say his name to put him on defense. They can talk about her and get the same result. That is a power move. It is also a read on a weakness. So, you know what happened next, even if you did not see the post. The tell is always the tempo. When something stings, his social cadence changes. The capital letters creep back. The sentences get shorter. The exclamation points do pull-ups. If there is not a direct statement, there is the surrogate echo, a campaign voice repeating a line about sick media and jealous losers, as if that makes a state channel in Moscow sound like a blogger with a grudge. In the past, he has countered humiliations with projection, with whataboutism, with a sudden pivot to bragging about toughness, especially on foreign adversaries.
Now, I had the opportunity to speak with Melania's former top advisor and former best friend, Stephanie Winston Wolkoff. And here's what she told me went down when Melania saw Stormy Daniels in Vogue. Here, play this clip. Around the time when you released the best-selling book, Melania and Me, there was that audio recording where Melania was livid that Stormy was going to be on the cover of Vogue or in Vogue. And she was calling her like a porn star hooker. And she was saying that to you, they're putting the porn star in the front. And this is so embarrassing. So she's always been humiliated by the Stormy ordeal. The fact that all of this testimony came out during the trial about what Donald was saying about her to Stormy, and perhaps even just the way that Stormy presented at trial, so professional, was a real kind of superstar and stood up there for herself. Do you think that added to the torment of Melania just knowing her?
I don't think Melania understands torment. as crass as that sounds, and as sad as that sounds, I'll never forget. And I shared the audio with you. Melania did. She called me and she goes, Anna Wintour, editor-in-chief of Vogue magazine, put the porn hooker in Vogue. Now, I was like, what? She said she shot the porn hooker. And I didn't know what she was talking about. And you hear my reaction. And in that reaction, Melania's only concern was that Vogue was actually profiling Stephanie Clifford, Stormy Daniels, not anything about the fact that the conversation in everyone's households was that Donald was having an affair with Stormy Daniels at the time. So it sort of shows you that she's able to compartmentalize so completely and so utterly uncaringly. There is no, she knows who she married and he knows who he married. She knows what she got into and she knows what she gets from this marriage. And that's more important than anything.
Meanwhile, those same adversaries play showreels of his wife on the main channel. Strong on Russia, sure, but they found the remote, and they know exactly which button is labeled volume. Western analysis that week spelled it out with fewer jokes. The Kremlin was checking leverage. The reaction was the test. If you want to see how cleanly this fits into a longer arc, pull up earlier instances where Russian television's coverage of Trump was less newsy and more needling. If you want more of this ridiculous circus with receipts, hit like, drop your favorite Trump meltdown moment in the comments, and subscribe to IBN, because as long as state TV in Moscow is doing open mic night with America's first family, we are going to be here translating the punchlines.